But I would just say, I'm glad that, you're able to tap in and feel supported and empowered through the notion that this is a global event. It's been happening for 16 years. It's a global movement that you're part of. And I hopefully that provides a little bit of cover for folks, for folks like you and others who are really putting their necks out there on the line to do something great for their communities. This is exactly what we hope for, is that in some small way, the Parking Day Network can actually, and the Placemaking Network can really support and empower folks who are really committed to doing the work they do because they love their cities, they love their communities. So, and this is just a great example of that, Jerin. So thanks so much for sharing that amazing Parking Day story from this year.
Thank you so much, John. That means a lot to me, brother.
Yeah, just to add on this as well, I think John put it very nice, but I really love your call to arms action that, get together, like this is happening, just join in. And execution wise, it was very cool to see how you had this incrementalism. So it grows up a little bit. And then like some people, ideally, in the future, when you do it next year, even more like, more people are popping in and you see these yellow cones that they're like, it's very cool visual effect as well of how, this call to arms could be visualized. So I think it's great potential there, like this approach. And when you get the momentum, I think it's awesome.
I'll chime in. I'll chime in and just salute you, John, for taking the approach and being courageous enough to just go at it. You got one under your belt, and next year's another opportunity. We want to help if we can. Okay.
Yeah. So this leaves us like this nice transition to you guys then, because you're Parking Day veterans yourselves. You have done it for a few years. So if you want, can you share with us your story from this year's Parking Day, Jim and Monica?
Yes. And I'll just share my screen. Well, what we did with our Parking Day is we've been doing Parking Days since 2014, and kind of attempting to work with an evolving system between Pontiac, Michigan, and Detroit. And we've followed the Michigan Central Station. So we created this poster, and if you see at the top, that's the Michigan Central Innovation District that Ford started to renovate this Michigan Central train station. And then this book depository building here is going to be like a maker hub. And the city is redeveloping this Roosevelt Park here, and then 50 million is going into renovation of historic Michigan Avenue. And in Pontiac, when we did our Parking Days, we were always on the street doing parklets and inviting community groups to come and set up their spaces. And you can see videos, if you go on this board, you can see videos of what we did here, but we didn't do parklets this year. We set up an interactive booth on the street where that renovation is going to be taking place, because in everyone's intentional framework for all of these dollars through ARPA and for Ford's investment, everything is to create a walkable, human-centered innovation hub that's mobility driven, that's driven by new forms of mobility. And so I'm just going to play this video and I'll speak to it. And this is, we were set up at Metropolis Cycles, which is the bike shop and repair store right next to Michigan Central. Hello from Parking Day Pontiac, Parking Day Detroit to Pontiac 2022. We are on Michigan Avenue at Metropolis Cycles, bike shop and repair. And we are taking insight from the street.
The central core to that, because unless we're walking up and down these sidewalks, right, and you can have all the avenue you want out here. You can have mass trains that come roaring through you. It won't mean anything to the city.
So if you can see here, this is the Cavenue. These are the designs that have been put out so far, and you can see a lot of protection for the middle section, which will be dedicated to autonomous, but you still have the bikes kind of out there hanging without any protection. So we kind of tried to bring some attention to that. Not that it's a final design, of course, but that's what the human bottom up interventions are supposed to be, which we're most inspired by Parking Day with.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I see you've got our little Brightmore Makers sign there. Well, we are over here in the Brightmore neighborhood on the west side of Detroit, and we're working out of and with Detroit Community Schools, which is a K-12 charter here on Burt Road in Brightmore. But our focus has been really in Brightmore Makerspace activity, and that's to bring the hands-on and the artistic activities alive, again, through the school system and out into the community as well.
So we had, so that was Bart Eddy with the Brightmore Makerspace. And for us, he's so important to include in any kind of talk about an innovation district and a hub, because if you really want a rockin' innovation district, you want that organic community connection, which is typically not typically not as well woven into the Detroit and Corktown neighborhoods.
Town for kids.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that if you build it for kids and you think about the kids first, then you're gonna make a pleasant town for everybody. You know, like, because if you're thinking about kids, you're gonna have infrastructure that slows the traffic.
Really?
You know, you're gonna have places that are safe, comfortable to walk. You know, like, and you're gonna have good green, like, public spaces.
Right.
But when you build it for cars,
Maybe Hamtramck needs to be the kid-friendly city model.
it should be.
Because it is so different.
Okay.
It has all of those elements.
We're the only community in the state of Michigan in several years that had increasing enrollment in schools prior to COVID. I don't know what's been happening since.
He's a master grant writer.
This is ARPA money. This is ARPA funding. All ARPA funding, you need to know one thing about it. It must have community-driven input.
Whatever location, but you can do that once a year.
You can't.
So are you gonna?
Oh, the factory. We know the factory.
And then,
I go by there and I don't see much activity. So.
yeah, there might not be anyone in there.
Not going to give you the insight that's necessary. You have to be on the street, on the sidewalk, engaging, defining, defending, dreaming.
Immersed in the complex system.
Yes, exactly. The complexity is the simplicity that we want to make of the complexity. That's our job.
Okay.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Go there.
Couple grand. Right there.
Right. This is kind of how we set things up. We always have a lot of urbanist books and posters and things to speak to run kind of impromptu design strat. As you can see, we're collecting human insights, and we decided not to do a parklet on Michigan Avenue, and we know we're in violation of the core tactical urbanist element of Parking Day, but we're celebrating that tactical urbanist spirit and doing a pop-up design strat because Michigan Avenue will be going through a dramatic transformation, and all of these parking spots will be taken away anyways. There is $50 million right now coming to Corktown via the federal government. U.S. Department of Transportation is putting in $25 million, and the city of Detroit, state of Michigan, and Ford are matching that. And this is going to be for, predominantly in their minds, autonomous and electric vehicles and public transit and bikes as well. However, in the designs, we just didn't see enough protection for biking and pedestrians, so we're including our digital design charrette in this. And as you can see here, this is the Michigan Central Station, which is under renovation. A $1 billion bet by Ford. And the city of Detroit is helping in creating this innovation district and doing Roosevelt Park, as you can see here. It's being transformed. But that bet is going to rely on the walkability and the human-centered design, which will spark innovation and create new jobs. We all hope for this region. And so we worked. Then we so we're kind of always working to facilitate more social conversations around these themes and do it in an organic fashion. And then recently, we kind of folded all of that work into the Better Cities Film Festival, which was in town, and they're making Detroit their flagship site for their annual festival. And we hosted a panel for that conversation on the all-powerful bike lobby. And this is a video of that panel discussion.
I've seen it in its full form, but in the lobby there's all of the stuff that you see up here right now on the screen was present physically, and guests of the film festival would go up and put new ideas on it. They say, oh, I'm from Detroit. Like I talked to a lot of people coming in tonight, and they said, oh, I never heard about this. This is cool. Oh, you guys should do this, or I'd like to see a walking tour in this neighborhood. I'd like to see you do something with this group. So we asked, they said, great idea. I'm going to forget. So write it down on the board. And then Jim and Monica have been kind of massaging it and curating it. And they're going to talk a little bit more about their process with their team here.
And we had the Detroit Greenways Coalition. Todd Scott spoke, and that organization's one of the leading partners for a 27-mile greenway that's going around Detroit. And we had Bart Eddy speak again from the Brightmoor Makerspace, and then the Free Bikes for Kids, which is getting thousands of bikes to Detroit kids, and Mama Raven, who is a leading volunteer for the Detroit Riverfront, which is, and she runs a program called the Herbal Walk and Talk. And for us, she's really humanizing the Detroit Riverfront, and she has a following of people coming and to her programs, and she wants to run a senior bike program around like there's a really popular program here called Slow Roll, and people bike all around the city, and she wants to call it the Slower Roll. And so she spoke to that. But yeah, we kind of made it a lot about bikes and the transformation of a heavily car-centric city. And worked with Better Cities Film Festival as a platform to sort of spread that knowledge, and hopefully we'll have more parking day content maybe for next year's festival. And we're gonna continue to work with that festival. We ran a design charrette throughout the entire festival and gathered ideas to try to build up more local cultural participation in the festival. Am I missing anything, Jim?
No, I think covered it covered it pretty well. We had a little sound problem there, but I think the messaging that you provided did a pretty good job. If I was going to add anything, I'd add this: the transformation in the automotive capital of the world to something more sustainable and more culturally relevant. Probably significantly, the Joe Louis Greenway project in a 27-mile neighborhood connector speaks volumes, and that's going to take 10 to 15 years and maybe $50 million to finish. And I just think that's an incredible, iconic commitment for a automotive capital of the world to its community.
Yeah, thanks. I would like to ask you a clarifying question though, because as far as I understand, the whole idea of your parking day stand was to inform about the transformation and potentially have some people reflect on it or like share extra content, right? I'm just curious how many like layout citizens, like the normal citizens, got engaged, and how does this sound to them? Like this transformation, was it some kind of a science fiction, or was it some kind of like a normal way to go? Like I'm very curious about that. I don't know with how many people we spoke, like let's say urbanists or like people interested in urban development versus like people that don't have that much background. Did you?
Tim?
You want to speak to the Better Film Festival, the Better Cities Film Festival, which has been going on now. I think it's their 10th year. They used to be in LA, and they've now taken Detroit as their annual presentation. And all of those are films about how culture has been exchanged and how it's been enhanced by the Better Cities Film Festival endeavors in terms of real world experiences. So really what this was an opportunity to view. I think there probably was 100 films over the course of 4 days that were previewed and then question and answer after. So some of that's all captured in the videos, and we didn't play the video that was our particular presentation because of time considerations. I know John had said he had to move on rather quickly, and we're already well past that 20-minute period. And so I'm going to leave it with that as opposed to going on. Okay.
Did you guys have any like community participation? Did you have any like just kind of random people come and put up spaces downtown like that, or were you more focused on kind of the business districts and the partners and stuff like that?
We had
go ahead, Monica.
We were interested in seeing what kind of street activity there was naturally occurring in Corktown, where all of this investment is coming, and like the future of Ford is resting on. So being outside of the bike shop, we thought we started with that. It was a different way to go than having like what we did in Pontiac before, where we had multiple organizations kind of jumping in, because we're kind of just testing the waters here and figuring things out ourselves. But talking with Justin in the video, you could revisit it and see that conversation. And we met, he's a teacher in Hamtramck, and Hamtramck happens to be one of the, has the highest number of children enrolled in school in the Detroit area. And so we talked with him about, child-friendly cities, and he was already versed in that. He's a biker, and he was bringing his rickshaw down to the bike shop to get fixed, and he rides people around Hamtramck a lot. It's a very multicultural city, and it's just a very cool city. And so he's kind of already, on the same page. I wouldn't say we mostly met people from the community that were in alignment, because we did our pop-up at the Better Cities Film Festival and had our big parking day poster popped up there as well. And everybody who was attending the festival is kind of like-minded as well. So we're trying to connect like the Brightmore Makerspace and get those kids engaged in understanding that content and those films, and just trying to weave more connectivity with people that might not be familiar.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I think, John, do you have any reflection on like this kind of effort? I think it happens a lot, like parking days, examples of like trying to connect different points, different collaborators as well. I don't know, like, do you have a reflection on this kind of efforts and how they usually go, or what is good, bad, and so on?
Well, I think what's fascinating to observe and knowing that you guys have been at this for some years now, you know, and really building momentum and really starting to bring together all the, you know, variety of players and constituencies that can kind of unite under the urbanist, better urbanism, you know, rubric. And I think so, yeah, the film festival, and you know, connecting with the cycling community, that makes total sense to me, and actually makes a lot of sense to me that, yeah, where you guys are at in your evolution in terms of your activism in Detroit and Pontiac is that, yeah, maybe, you know, this year it doesn't make sense to do parking day installations anymore when you've got bigger targets you've set, and you're using this as a platform to engage and kind of, again, build momentum for these larger initiatives and get feedback on those larger initiatives. And I think that's great. You know, I always assumed that parking day was just going to disappear as a kind of tactical urbanism tool, because it would be superseded by more formalized parklet programs or, yeah, larger scale, you know, streetscape improvement projects. But it continues to be used in places that I think, you know, particularly in places that aren't as far along in their advocacy, or just starting their advocacy for safer and greener and more equitable streets. And so I think it's super interesting for me to see how you're deploying that tactic in the context of all these much broader and kind of bigger picture, longer term strategic things that you're, you know, enabling and supporting in the city. One thing you did mention, which I thought was quite interesting, is that, hey, you wanted to take the pace of public life in Corktown and street activity. And that is super important. And to the degree to which you can actually, you know, get some numbers about what were the, you know, how many pedestrians were walking by, how many cyclists did you count? Because that, you know, that data is kind of hard to get. You know, even if you're working with the bigger organizations or urban planning firms, like actually doing ped counts and bike counts is still hard to get, because it requires, in a lot of cases, a body on the ground. Yes, you can get the big data and the Strava Metro data, but actually to really, you know, be in situ in the street and observe and record activity is super important. And so I encourage you guys to continue to do that. Sounds like you're already doing it, but actually to capture the numbers and say, yeah, 2014 we had, you know, 1,200 people, or you know, and now it's growing, or it's changing actually over time. But to really be diligent about recording the public life that you observe and share that back, as I think as a metric of success, I think could be really, really powerful. But I would say, you know, you've got some big and long-term important things happening in these cities. You know, one thing I'm curious to chat with you guys more is, you know, what is the residential population in these downtowns? You know, because that is really just sort of a crucial generator of street life, among other factors like, you know, improving conditions for active mobility. But it's also about getting more people into those neighborhoods and into the downtowns to the extent that that's possible. And that's certainly coming up as more and more cities are facing the reality that, our downtown districts that were previously really focused on, you know, as commercial business districts, office districts, are fundamentally changing, you know, due to the pandemic and changing patterns of work. And that offers a big opportunity, actually, for those of us who are interested in reinvesting in our inner cities to become more mixed use, to provide, to open opportunity potentially for more affordable housing. And that all then contributes, I think, to these observations we can make regarding life in the street, you know, which you guys are focused on and tapped into. Anyway, those are just some kind of thoughts. And again, wanted to say, you know, I'm in awe of your dedication and your focus, and it's so evident that you love your city and you really you're committed to your community in ways that is it's really powerful to witness. So I'm just glad I can be along here for the ride, and I'm glad that Parking Day is able to be a tool in your toolkit for really making making greater streets, safer streets, more equitable streets in your community.
Wow,
John, I think
you.
you nailed it.
Yeah,
Beautifully
thank you
put.
so much. As you know, we really appreciate your feedback.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, thank you for this. I think I'll do a very quick shout out of